provider does have some responsibility. Anytime you have an application for a permit or you're trying to register something or some type of notification, the applicant submits paperwork. He files an application. That application is reviewed. It's either determined to meet the requirements or not. And if there are deficiencies in that application, typically that governing board will identify those deficiencies in writing or in some formal manner, not that it's debated and discussed for 3 and 4 months, time after time after time. So that's what I would look for, that if you're not happy that the ordinances are being met to the letter, then has that been communicated in writing to Range so that then they can respond? I really hate to hear a lot of discussion, debate about the sound ordinance, that there's an exceedance there. First of all, I'm going to be within 1,000 or 1,500 feet of one of these well pads, and I don't really care about the sound because I know it's going to be temporary. I know you have to dot your I's and cross your T's. I've done that myself for the last several decades. I managed a regulatory affairs group for a large chemical company in the area, so I'm familiar with regulations and processes. I'm not saying that I'm an air quality expert or anything like that, but I am quite familiar with registration permits and things like for processes and things like that. So my expectation of an agency, a governing body, is to respond formally to what the deficiencies are and give them the opportunity to correct them. In addition to that, I don't believe that you brought up the, or maybe you could or couldn't, I don't know, but there are waivers as well. For the most part, this is a rural area. This is not in a residential setting. So we have a half a dozen families that might be within a half a mile of these wells. So to belabor the point about sound, it seems counterproductive, and we should move forward to bigger and better things. And I would like to see that the board evaluate this and move. And I'm pro drill, needless to say. So I'd like to see a favorable response from the board tonight.
Well, I want to respond to your question. We did send a written request for all the deficient information to Range. We did. That was done in October, almost immediately after they submitted their application. The Planning Commission again requested information. So that was done. And I'd like to remind everybody here too that at Range's request, we did not begin the Kendall hearing until December the 10th. That had nothing to do with the township. They made a written request to delay beginning that hearing until December the 10th. So we actually only had one hearing on the Kendall pad, which is near you. And of course, they didn't come to the second hearing. So there was no delay on the part of the township.
And I understand, and I feel bad in a way that Range is kind of vilified for not showing up or not answering questions. And I, like Mr. Campbell, I think they have answered the questions. And there might be a reason for that. As long as they continue to ask questions, does the clock not continue to tick-tock? So I think if they make their presentation, in their opinion, they've made their presentation and they want the hearing closed so that the decision can be made. Otherwise, this could go on for years. It could go on infinity if one wanted to.
What about the public?
Well, the public, let me say something about the public. The public, I think, has spoken. For the most part, you look at the areas, and I think in record time, Mark West has come through and they've contacted all the landowners. And in record time, not utilizing eminent domain, but these people have talked to Mark West, they've signed up, they've been contracted, and things are progressing with that. Same with the leases. If people didn't want them to drill, then they wouldn't sign the lease, or they'd sign a no-drill lease.
That's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the hearing. Who comes to a public hearing, says what they want to say, and then asks the board to close the hearing without public comment?
There was plenty of public comment, Mr. Cole. No. I was here at the same meetings that Mr. Campbell was as well.
I'm sorry, they presented a binder full of documents, put them down on the table and wanted the hearing closed. The public has a right to look at that binder and come to the next hearing and make comments on it. That's our system of government.
Which they did.
Which they did, that's right. Yes. That's why those hearings are continued, because the public has a right to make comments. Mr. Zena, a lot of people came to make comments.
I don't believe anyone is contesting the fact that the public has a right to comments. I believe that they do. But it does seem, looking at this from the outside a little bit, when one looks at a broader picture, that I don't look at the board as being helpful here. It looks as though you're looking for every opportunity to throw up a roadblock. You're not, in other words, what can we do for you? You come to the residents, what can we do for you? I would like to think that the board is going to be the same type of behavior with Range. What can we do for you? And yes, you're going to, I hear the term that you're there to protect the health and safety of the residents. I think that the township, with no disrespect intended, we're not equipped to do health and safety determinations at this level. We rely on federal and state regulations to help us do that, and you oversee that. But as far as the township having the ability to regulate these folks or put new things into play that maybe our other townships don't, that's a whole other story. But I don't want to go there, and I'm
No.
off my mark.
I'd like to address your one sound comment, since that was one of my issues. When I asked about the sound study, you said you don't care about the sound. That was one of the issues we asked Range. We said, look, if everybody around this drill pad within the boundaries of what our ordinance says the decibels has to be, doesn't care. The board sat up here and gave testimony that we don't care, but we need a site plan to see on paper the people around this in writing so that they could be asked, do they care or would they waive that? Range would not provide that. We asked over and over and over, and they would not. We told them what we needed. I don't care if every person on that drill pad is willing to waive the sound ordinance, fine. But they wouldn't even give us the documentation required per our ordinance to find out who those individuals are and if they didn't have a problem with it.
So this application was different than the previous applications and those omissions
In the noise
from
ordinance?
the Imperial Land.
You have to stand up, I can hear you.
I see. So this application was different than the Imperial Land application. Was more information was omitted. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. That's what I've been trying to tell everybody. It's not the same as what we were given for the Imperial Land.
Thank you.
I'm glad that Mr.